I don't know of any other character in TV history who is worse at managing relationships than Terry Flynn. Dreamers, welcome back to the Dreaming Forward podcast and today's Out of Scope episode. So I promised y'all in the last Out of Scope episode where I talked about Big Meech that I was going to discuss the comparison between Meech and Terry's leadership style because y'all, it's a lot. I thought it would be a good topic for a discussion around resilience because a lot of an organization's resilience will stem from the type of and variations in leadership that it allows within the company. I want to be clear, there is no one way to be a leader. There is not even two ways to be a leader. There are many different styles of leadership which can be effective. There are many different styles of leadership that can be successful in an industry, in a company, and even on a team. Honestly, most people will not just have one leadership style. You're probably going to have a mix of two or even three. And it's going to be that agility and that flexibility that creates a successful leadership experience, not just for the team, but for the leader themselves. Quick recap for people who might not be familiar with BMF. BMF is a show on Stars that is the fictional account of the very real Flannery brothers from Detroit. What up, though? Who have one of the most notorious and I think lucrative drug empires in American history. Meech and Terry are two brothers. Meech is the oldest, I think in the show they say by 18 months, and Terry is the younger brother. However, he is the middle child because they have three children total. It's Meech, Terry, and Nicole. That is important because a lot of Terry's issues, y'all, is giving middle child syndrome. And Meech is described as being the alpha. He is the oldest. He has this outsized responsibility. He is always taking control, very stubborn. When the show starts, Meech is the leader and the only head of the 50 Boys organization. So when it first starts, they're called the 50 Boys. Eventually, they transition to being called BMF, ironically, at Meech's creation. A huge journey in season one is the transition of Terry being a fringe employee. You could almost maybe think of him like a contractor to being a permanent employee in the organization to then resigning. So he separates from the organization. And then in season two, he boomerangs back into the company as a partner rather than as a maybe executive level leader, like in season one. The journey through season two is again Meech and Terry now developing a 50-50 partnership as co-founders. And then now in season three, the company has become a national brand rather than simply a local brand. And Terry is responsible for managing one hub while Meech is launching and stabilizing another hub in Atlanta. So I lay all of that foundation out because it's, I think, going to explain in particular Terry's leadership flubs because, again, his journey is from temporary part-time contractor to permanent employee to permanent employee leader slash executive to out of the company to permanent partner slash co-founder to co-founder slash president of a, let's call it a vertical. Let's say if you think of like GE, you might have the president of GE Healthcare, who is different than, let's say, GE Aviation, which is different than the president of another part. So Terry would be like the president and CEO of GE Healthcare, whereas Meech might be the president of GE Aviation. Let me just start with Terry because the anger that I feel at Terry's character is just is through the roof. Like, I don't know of any other character in TV history who is worse at managing relationships than Terry Flannery. I've never seen anybody be this bad at it, y'all. This man is horrible at managing relationships. Terrible. He messes it up with everybody. In the episode that just aired this past week, he managed to piss off the plug, the police, the partners, the employees, his parents, both his women that he dating and messing around with, including one who was the mother of his children. And I think Meech. Who likes this man? And if he happened to see this in real life, I just want you to know, sir, that I think that you're a wonderful person. I don't have any grudges against you. I'm only describing your character on TV. But y'all, this man is terrible. At first I was like, you know what, maybe it's just bad because he's young and he's coming out of his brother's shadow, and that is a part of it. But no, this is just his character. He just got a bad attitude. But he is able to have a bad attitude because his brother is so adept at managing relationships. I mentioned that briefly in the first Out of Scope episode because Meech is just naturally gifted at being persuasive, at being emotionally intelligent, almost to the point of like lightweight sociopathy a little bit. Because he is able to convince people to do some pretty incredible things. It's just effortless for him. But as good as he is at managing relationships, Terry is even worse at it. He is really, really bad. So to give an example, he goes to the plug who he convinces to let them make this deal. But Meech is able to find a better plug. Instead of him going and being like, hey, can't do it, gonna work. He come in there just flexing on this lady as she is like crazy, crazy. Sir, why are you making enemies? Meech would have never fumbled that relationship like that. Then he goes to Detective Brian at the end of the episode. He tells him, hey, come work with us. He know for a fact Detective Brian's only son is in prison right now, mainly because of Terry's shenanigans. Because again, he's managing the Detroit hub. Flubs that conversation up. So I was wondering why Detective Bryant was so geeked to get Terry, because the way season 1 set it up was that Detective Bryant knew Meech really well. I'm like, why is he so geeked to be him and him up? But now I get why. Because Terry was a complete butthole to him. Terry is terrible at managing relationships. And that gets into his leadership style because he is excellent at operational work. There are some scenes in season 2 where he explains their workflow, how they mask the scent from the K9 unit if they get searched, where they hide, how they retrofit the vehicles to be able to stash their drugs, how they set up money counts, how they pay people, how people pay them. He is excellent at it. He's able to run this down in a way that is almost like militaristic. He is also really good at understanding system design in a way that Meech is not grounded enough to do. As an operational leader, Terry is masterful at that. But that's not where he sees the most value. And I'm wondering how later seasons are going to handle explaining that. But he doesn't see the value in that because on a personal level, he is desperate to get out of the shadow of his brother's fame and prestige. People love Meech. They love being around him. They enjoy talking to him. They enjoy sitting with him. They're eager to work with him. They love him. Even the parents. So as much as the father especially balks at him, he has a lot of respect for Meech's willingness to go out on his own. And they talk about that actually in the last episode that just aired. A father and Meech get a chance to have a conversation. I was hoping for that too. I'm glad they aired that like that, because I think that was a good way to spell it out for viewers, because people didn't seem to get that part. But the mother absolutely just adores Meech. The sister adores Meech. Even Terry's girlfriend slash baby mama loves Meech. She thinks he is, the protector and the provider. Always thoughtful. Nobody feels like that about Terry. It's like, it's so bad, because Terry's je ne sais quoi is that he is very intelligent. He is very analytical. He would be great handling things like budgets, workflows and processes, technological development, system design, that kind of stuff. He's excellent at that. Now we're going to get to the strategic leadership, and that's Meech. It's Meech's character. I admit I have a bias for this because I'm this type of leader. I'm not very good at the operational stuff. I won't say I'm not good, because obviously I'm running a company, but it's not my fave at all. When I was a project manager and had to do that type of stuff, I hated it. I got it done because I liked paying rent and feeding myself, but I was not geeked about it at all. I love strategic leadership. I recognize this from episode 1, how gifted Meech is at things like visioning, relationship management, forecasting. He's excellent at motivating teams, marketing. He is excellent at building sales strategy. Arguably, though, Terry is better at sales implementation. So if we were to think of this in terms of departments in a company, Meech would be the sales strategist and the head of sales enablement, and Terry would be excellent at sales implementation, sales metric, but also really good at developing compensation packages. So there was an incident that happened recently where people were mad because Terry would penalize them for being late or short. And a huge part of why they were angry is because Meech never did that. There is a motivational factor to that. So if you're not performing well, you don't get the same pay. And while I'm sure that would be frustrating as a shift, cultural shift, it is a motivator in sales. Another thing that Meech is really, really good at is the business development end. So his recognition of needing to expand to different territories, being able to develop new verticals, emerging trends, new markets, being able to be a talent acquisition leader. So his ability to do workforce planning is excellent. And even his ability to manage labor relations, because that's essentially what it is when you have to fire people, handling employee complaints, etc. He is able to get to the heart of why people are frustrated and convince them to stay in the fold or to leave amicably. Again, I have a passion for that, but the truth is, that's the purpose of this whole episode, you need both strategic and operational leadership. Part of how BMF fell apart toward the end was that the discipline, the structure, the correction, the monitoring, the analysis needed to run such a large organization. I think the documentary said at peak it was like over 500 people in the BMF organization nationwide. It requires Terry's type of leadership. However, the relationship management, brand recognition, brand cohesion, long-term investment versus divestment strategy, that is Meech's territory and is also needed. because when you think about the ways that the DEA was cracking down, Meech's hurry to try to transition to music was actually a really smart idea. But unfortunately, because the brothers are now having this ugly split, we don't get the benefit of the balance of both. In leadership, I want you to be thoughtful about the fact that number one, you will probably lean toward one style versus the other. For me, I'm more strategic than operational, but I can do operational stuff. I just don't enjoy it. I can think of a few leaders who were great at operations, but just terrible at the strategic part. But you need both to be successful. Where I want you to be thoughtful is understanding timing, market conditions, and long-term viability. Understanding timing as a leader will help you know which side you need to lean more into. And if it's really, really hard for you to lean into strategic versus operational, you need to staff. Period. If the timing is calling for a strong operational leader and you can't get up to speed and up to the level of excellence needed quickly, go on and staff it. Likewise, if you find that you are in need of a strategic leader, envisioning, forecast, you need to bring on a consultant or staff somebody ASAP. Market conditions are also a huge factor with this. If you think about what's happening in a lot of industries, there are some that are going to be obsolete within the next 5 years. If you are not a person who has a strategic mindset to understand how to either plan an exit, plan a downsizing or restructuring, or plan a merger or acquisition, you're going to struggle. Along the way, you will still need that operational strength so that you can at least retain performance and hopefully the appropriate staffing levels to make that transition. Market conditions can also mean shifts in consumer demands. The craze, for example, with Ozempic is now pushing a lot of food manufacturers to rethink their marketing strategies and their sales strategies because people just are not eating junk like they were. It is rumored that that shift will not return. So those purchasing levels and revenue levels may not return to the way they were. Finally, long-term viability as a leader, and especially as a founder, whether you're a solo founder or a part of a twosome or threesome of founders, you're not always going to do what you do in the same exact way. No matter how successful you are at it, how passionate you are at it, understanding your own threshold is going to be important. So, one way that this played out on the show in particular is that Meech got to a point where he just wanted to see beyond Detroit's borders. He wanted to explore different places. Yes, it was a strategic business move. It was also that he just wanted to be some other place. I think that the issues with Lamar and issues with the police accelerated that, but he was going to do that anyway. And I don't think it was ever a point where he felt comfortable really expressing that, mainly because it's just a bunch of people that needed him. And it was also not something that I think Terry really felt comfortable sharing either, because I don't think he was ready to take the reins. And if you're a person who is a part of a group of founders or a group of executive leaders, leaving space to have those honest conversations with each other about what your thresholds are is going to be really important. If you are the leader who in 5 years, the jig is up, you need to be able to tell your co-founders that. If you are a person who you kind of not feeling it right now, and so you putting yourself on a 12-month threshold, you owe it to them to communicate that. People change, people evolve, that is natural. But how you handle that evolution is going to make or break your company. When you're planning an exit, it could be the long-term viability of your product and service. The show alludes to how they are diversifying the type of product they selling. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get it straight if I try to say that. But ironically with Tupac, that scene was funny. It made sense to me. I don't know. Everybody was complaining like, "Wow, that's crazy." Tupac, of course, they would have known him at that time. But anyway, they are diversifying because they recognize the quality of a different type of product. And so when you think about long-term viability, diversifying your products and services and the mix of those products and services are going to be important, and that is both a strategic and operational function. To sum it up, Meech being a strategic leader, Terry being an operational leader, they honestly are the best of both worlds when they can work well together. But their egos make that so difficult all the time. And it's really unfortunate because I'm almost 100% positive that that is what contributed to the downfall of the larger organization. So tell me in the comments, do you lean more towards strategic leadership or operational leadership? And why? How did you develop that leadership style over time? Which do you think is most valuable in this phase of your career? And what do you think of Terry and Meech's leadership styles on the show? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye, dreamers.